Hey everybody, it is Grant Robbins coming at you again from the garage, talking all things construction, risk related, and how to track. Again, I'm with Billy for Insurance, and we are here to help you solve all of your compliance tracking needs, but most importantly, want to make you smarter about things that we deal with in our construction industry. Today, let's chat about OCIPs and CCIPs, sometimes commonly referred to as wraps or wrap-up insurance programs. All right, let's get into it. What are they? Well, let's break down the acronym. OCIP, Owner-Controlled Insurance Program, owner. CCIP, Contractor-Controlled Insurance Program, typically general contractor, all right? So what are they? Well, in short, you are creating an insurance policy for a project that wraps itself around everybody involved on it. In a sense, you're getting one policy for all the parties so that there's no multiple parties when it comes to a claim, pointing fingers, trying to say, it's your fault, I'm paying you, or I'm going to sue you, and then you're going to countersue, all that stuff. It is one policy. Again, that's where the term comes from, wraps everything up into one. So let's be a little bit more detailed. What does it actually cover? When you go get an OCIP or a CCIP, it is replacing the need for the individual contractors to have general liability insurance and most times workers' compensation insurance. Not always, sometimes it's just GL, but it can include workers' comp as well. It depends on how you set it up. It can include builder's risk and a few other professional liability, excess liability, but in general, think of the fact that you are eliminating the need for all of the people on the project to have general liability insurance for liability associated with third-party claims, and most likely workers' compensation. That's the nuts and bolts of the whole thing. What is not covered? Well, this is an important thing to understand. Just because you are getting a CCIP and an OCIP doesn't mean you don't have to track insurance beyond it. You have to track that everyone opts in or acknowledges that they are joining the wrap policy for the project. But you still, as a GC, have to go get proof that they have auto insurance. You might have to get them to show that they have excess liability coverage if it's not in the CCIP or the OCIP. You might have to track bonds differently. If there's special pollution or other types of coverages, you might have to track those. But one of the biggest ones that catches people is off-site work. Off-site work is typically not covered by an OCIP or a CCIP. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're doing a project on a city street or whatever, and you've got work beyond the property lines, curb gutter, sidewalks, streets, underground, utility connections, anything else like that outside the project lines, that is considered off-site, and it will not be covered by your wrap program. Most likely, I've seen times when it is, but in general, it's not. So you still have to track that as well as a GC. So if you have an underground utility sub that's doing work on-site and off-site, they're going to have to opt into the wrap and then still provide you full coverage for every single thing, and still provide you full coverage for everything they're doing off-site. Another catch. Many times you need to understand what the wrap says about work that is fabricated off-site and brought to the project. The GL might cover them for any harm or damages or workmanship or anything like that for work done off-site in their shop, but the wrap might not, so they still might need to provide coverage for something like that. Again, nuances in insurance, the advice, read the fine print and understand it, and if you don't understand it, get someone who does, because you can get hung up on that stuff. All right, now let's get into a couple things. Misconception, big one in our industry is, especially owners doing wrap programs for GCs, is that, oh, I'm going to do this wrap and pay for it as an OCIP. And they cost money because you're buying an insurance policy. Oh, but I'm going to get a credit from all the subs because they don't have to provide insurance, so I'm going to break even. No, it doesn't happen that way. It never does. First of all, credits in construction are 50 cents on the dollar to begin with, and you're not going to get it from everyone. Now, let's explain why. In insurance and construction, as we know, as GCs and subs, you pay for your insurance on gross receipts. If you're a sub and you don't have to provide general liability for a project because it's pulled out and put into a wrap, then you don't have to pay your broker for that It's not part of your gross receipts. It's outside of what you're doing. It's covered by another policy. That means that you should be able to provide a credit to the owner. If you're paying 1% for insurance and you take a $1 million contract away from what you pay and you say, okay, I don't have to pay that 1% because I'm in the wrap, well, you should be providing a credit. It doesn't necessarily work out that way. The other thing is this. Almost all wrap programs have embedded in them what is called an SIR, self-insured retention. It's basically a deductible that says, hey, plumber, framer, you're in the wrap, but you're liable for the first $25,000 of a claim if it's determined that you're at fault. Okay? They have to pay that out of pocket. Well, they might say, I'm not coughing up 1% if I might have to pay for this $25,000 if something goes wrong. Just something to be cognizant about when you're trying to do these negotiations. Benefits, again, we kind of covered them. The biggest one is just it being a wrap. Everyone is involved in the same insurance, and there's no finger pointing if something goes wrong. It's very common to be able to determine something happens. Insurance carrier does some research, figures out what the problem is. If it's solely attributable to the framer, there go, give us the 25 grand, and then the insurance policy covers the rest. It's kind of a much cleaner process, and especially in our business, it's smooth. I like them a lot. Disadvantages. Well, a couple things. Disadvantages and kind of heads up things. Heads ups are, if you're getting a CCIP or an OCIP, if you're a GC, understand that you might get a lower rate than an owner because you track your safety and construction and you have history doing insurance on construction projects. So you might be able to get a lower rate for a larger project. Something to mention to owners that they're going to get an OCIP. You might say, I can get a CCIP for less, and then name them as additionally insured. Other things. Again, I mentioned you're not going to get dollar for dollar savings by doing an OCIP and thinking you're going to save money with your subs. You also, as a GC, need to understand that you're going to have admin time. You can hire a company to do the admin and manage the OCIP and the wrap, but it requires management. And also, you can't ignore the fact that you're still going to have to track insurance independently. Okay? So those are some of the highlights. Lastly, what to look out for. Again, read the fine print. You need to also make sure that none of your subcontractors have some weird clause in their existing policy that excludes them from opting into an insurance wrap. If they have that, they can't join it. Seems odd, but got to check it, right? Make sure you're always getting adequate coverage in the OCIP or the CCIP that covers the project, especially as the general contractor. Please provide your input and feedback back to the owner to make sure that you're getting adequate coverage. The other thing is you may need to up coverage with change orders along the way in the project. So do a little forecasting, put a little money in there, contingency, whatever it is, whether you're even just allocating funds that might need to be reserved to pay for overages or the coverage of the OCIP, but you're going to need to make sure you do that. Other than that, I hope this gives you a little broad base of what OCIPs and CCIPs are all about. I think they are great for our industry. They are becoming more popular. As I mentioned previously, we at Billy can help you take care of tracking and managing all of your OCIPs and CCIPs. That's it for me in the garage. Take care.